Have you ever wondered what would happen if Luffy could steal the abilities of every person he defeats? What kind of ridiculous power would he stack up over the course of the story? And just how unstoppable would the Straw Hats become? In this timeline, Luffy grows up in Fuchsia Village and eats the Gum Gum fruit at age 7, but with one new perk. Every time he knocks out a Devil Fruit user, he absorbs their power on the spot, similar to Blackbeard. On top of that, he can hand those stolen fruits to his crewmates whenever he feels like it, which, knowing Luffy, would be based on zero strategy and a lot of gut feeling. So the journey starts normally. Luffy sets sail at 17, rescues Zoro, picks up Nami in Orange Town, and that's exactly where things start getting interesting. The moment Luffy defeats Buggy the Clown and sends him flying, a strange light washes over the battlefield. Luffy's body suddenly starts splitting into floating pieces on its own. He's absorbed the Chop Chop fruit. Buggy wakes up screaming at Luffy to give it back, which is honestly the most Buggy reaction possible. Luffy ignores him completely and moves on like nothing happened. At Syrup Village, the Chop Chop fruit immediately makes a difference. Kuro's entire fighting style relies on slashing through enemies at blinding speed, which was a real problem for Luffy's rubber body in the original story. Not anymore. Every time Kuro's claws come down, Luffy's body just splits apart and reforms behind him. One clean punch later, Kuro is out cold and Luffy walks away without a scratch. Then at the Baratier, Don Krieg tries to slice through Luffy with his arsenal of weapons, and Luffy just launches his separated body parts at him like living cannonballs. Krieg goes down in seconds. Mihawk watches the whole thing from a distance, raises an eyebrow, and decides Luffy is too interesting to kill. Some things don't change. Now, skipping ahead past Arlong Park, the next big moment comes at Whiskey Peak. The Baroque Works agents come out at night to ambush the crew, and after Luffy and Zoro clean house, two fruits land in Luffy's lap at once: Mr. Five's Bomb Bomb fruit and Miss Valentine's Kilo Kilo fruit. Luffy keeps the Bomb Bomb fruit and hands the Kilo Kilo fruit straight to Sanji, reasoning that a guy who kicks people for a living should probably be able to change how heavy his legs are on impact. Sanji immediately starts testing kicks that hit like a lightweight and land like a wrecking ball. The crew is horrified. On Little Garden, Mr. 3 and Miss Golden Week show up to intercept the Straw Hats. Mr. 3 tries to encase everyone in wax like he usually does, but Luffy just blows every wax construct apart with the Bomb Bomb fruit before 3 can finish building anything. Sanji's new heavyweight kicks do the rest. With both of them defeated, Luffy picks up the Wax fruit and immediately hands it over to Usopp, who nearly faints from excitement at the idea of being able to sculpt his own weapons out of hardened wax mid-battle. Then comes Alabasta. This is where things get genuinely complicated, because Crocodile is a whole different problem. Luffy charges into his casino head first and gets buried in the sand, same as in the original timeline. The extra fruits don't make Luffy any smarter, but the second fight is where it gets creative. Luffy coats his fist in blood like before to bypass Crocodile's sand Logia, landing hit after hit and leaving blood marks across his body. Then he activates the Bomb Bomb fruit and detonates every single mark at once. Crocodile basically turns into a firework. Luffy finishes him off with a Gum Gum rocket to the jaw. Crocodile goes airborne, and as his sand power starts slipping away, Luffy absorbs the Sand fruit. He uses it immediately to pull moisture out of the sky and drench Alabasta in rain, ending the civil war right there. The people of Alabasta are stunned. Robin decides this is a man worth following and asks to join the crew. Moving on to Skypiea, which is where Luffy picks up arguably the most broken acquisition yet. Enel's Rumble fruit is a Logia that lets its user become, create, and control lightning at will. 200 million volts of it, and Nico Robin herself once described it as one of the closest things to invincible power in the world. Here's the thing though, Luffy's rubber body already made him immune to every single one of Enel's attacks in the original story. That doesn't change. What changes is that the moment Enel hits the floor of the Maxim for the first time, Luffy absorbs the fruit. Now he can fire lightning at full voltage with zero risk of hurting himself, because rubber is a natural insulator. No other lightning user in the series has that luxury. On top of that, the Rumble fruit lets users read electromagnetic waves across enormous distances, which fused with Luffy's growing observation haki basically gives him a whole island radar for every living heartbeat around him. Skipping over to the Water 7 and Enies Lobby arcs, which play out mostly the same, Robin gets rescued, Luffy goes gear second for the first time. The difference is that Lucci is far less prepared for what he's walking into. Rob Lucci's leopard fruit gives him terrifying raw power in the original, and the fight nearly kills Luffy. Here, the second Lucci tries to go Roku Ogan on a point-blank shot, Luffy splits his torso apart using the Chop Chop fruit, and the attack passes straight through him. Luffy then blasts Lucci with a lightning strike from the Rumble fruit before closing with gear second and finishing the fight significantly faster. He absorbs the leopard fruit after Lucci Mochi goes down and eventually gives it to Zoro, reasoning that a swordsman who can turn into a leopard is probably scarier than a regular swordsman. Zoro doesn't argue. The Thriller Bark arc gives Luffy one more addition. After putting Moria down, Luffy absorbs the Shadow Fruit, the ability to steal, store, and weaponize shadows. He passes it straight to Brook without thinking twice, which is actually the most logical thing Luffy has ever done, since Brook is literally a skeleton held together by his own soul. Brook with the Shadow Fruit means he can now infuse stolen shadows into objects, people, or himself to amplify strength on the fly. The crew sails into the New World, considerably more dangerous than they were supposed to be. At Punk Hazard, Caesar Clown falls to Luffy's new overwhelming arsenal, and the gas fruit goes to Chopper, who figures out pretty quickly that a doctor can become and manipulate any gas he wants, is basically the most terrifying field medic alive. Chopper can now suffocate enemies, create smoke screens, neutralize poison clouds, and then turn around and patch up everyone afterward. Caesar would be furious if he weren't already unconscious. Dressrosa is where Robin's upgrade arrives. Sugar's Hobby Fruit, the ability to turn anyone she touches into a toy and erase all memory of them from everyone they've ever known, ends up in Luffy's hands after the crew subdues her, and Luffy hands it to Robin immediately. Robin can already sprout hands and limbs across any surface within a massive range around her. Add the ability to turn whatever those hands touch into a toy, and you have someone who can silently dismantle an entire enemy force without making a sound. Doflamingo's birdcage goes up anyway, but by the time Luffy's crew gets through with the Don Quixote pirates, there's barely anyone left for it to trap. When Luffy finally faces Doflamingo himself, he uses the Sand Fruit to corrode the strings before they reach him, and the Bomb Fruit to turn every grain of sand into an explosive on contact. Doflamingo doesn't last long. At Whole Cake Island, the fight with Katakuri still goes the distance because it has to. Luffy needs every second of that battle to develop future sight, and there's no shortcut for that kind of growth. He wins the same way, through sheer refusal to stay down. Luffy absorbs the Mochi fruit afterwards and hands it to Jinbei, who joins the crew mid-arc. Jinbei's Fishman karate is built around controlling and redirecting pressure and flow, and Mochi is basically the ideal substance for that fighting style. During the crew's escape from Whole Cake Island, Jinbei uses the Mochi to create impact-absorbing walls around the ship that eat Big Mom's cannon fire without splintering. Pedro doesn't have to sacrifice himself. The crew escapes intact. Back at the Reverie, the news about Luffy's ability to steal devil fruits has already started spreading. The rumors are completely out of control. People are claiming he can take a fruit just by looking at someone, that his bounty should be 3 times higher, and then he's already absorbed a dozen Logia types. Imu takes the threat very seriously, and not just because of the Nika fruit. It's because Luffy is turning his whole crew into a walking collection of the world's most dangerous abilities, and he's doing it faster every arc. Wano arrives, and Luffy still loses to Kaido twice. No amount of stolen fruits fixes a hockey gap, and Kaido is specifically the kind of opponent who exists to prove that point. Luffy gets sent to Udon Prison, trains under impossible conditions, breaks through his ceiling, and comes back. The raid on Onigashima is a completely different story this time around. Zoro with the leopard fruit is faster and more ferocious than King can handle. Sanji with the Kilo fruit is hitting Queen with heavyweight adjusted kicks that crater the floor. Chopper's gas fruit means that the Beast Pirate's biological weapons are worthless. He just neutralizes every cloud of toxin Caesar left behind. Robin is converting entire squads into toys before they get within 10 feet of the crew. The raid that nearly destroyed the Alliance in the original story turns into a systematic dismantling. On the roof, Kaido still dominates early. His endurance and hockey are in a different league, and that doesn't change no matter how many fruits Luffy is carrying. But as Gear 5 finally activates and the Nika fruit awakens, Luffy layers the Rumble fruit on top of it. In Gear 5, Luffy already bends reality to his imagination. Add lightning that moves at the speed of electricity, and electromagnetic radar tracking Kaido's every movement through the clouds, and suddenly Kaido can't reposition, can't disappear into a thunderhead, and can't get a moment to breathe. Every transformation gets telegraphed before it lands. Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji hit him with a final combined attack, and Kaido goes down. Luffy absorbs the fish fruit model Azure Dragon, the mythical Zoan fruit that made Kaido the strongest creature in the world, and for a moment, the crew just stares at him in silence. Luffy looks at the fruit, shrugs, and hands it to Frankie. Wano is free. The crew sails on, and somewhere in Mary Joie, 5 very old men in very expensive robes are having a meeting about how badly the situation has gotten out of hand. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to click on this one to see what would happen if all the Upper Moons and Demon Slayer fought each other.